Hey everybody, this is Meryl. Welcome to Growing a Healthy Child. Now, this set of videos I'm doing right now will not be about children specifically. I'm going to share a little bit about this amazing trip I was able to take to Southeast Asia and just how that worked, what I learned, what kind of food we ate, what we saw. It was an amazing experience. Southeast Asia has never been on my bucket list, to be honest. But I have a friend, she likes to travel. We decided we would go someplace really exotic for our birthdays, but that was in 2020. And we all know what happened in 2020. Nobody went anywhere. So we waited 4 years and we just were able to go on the trip this past month or so. It was a 3-week trip to Thailand, Laos, Cambodia, and Vietnam. And I want to share what we experienced and what we learned. I could not have imagined everything that transpired. So sit back, dare I say, buckle in, and we'll get right to it. We traveled through Thailand, Laos, Cambodia, and Vietnam. These countries are countries that have a very rich Hindu and Buddhist heritage. And their foods reflect that, and the pace of the people and the culture reflect that history and that heritage. So it was a very different experience than living in the Americas, probably anywhere in the Americas, which is heavily Judeo-Christian based. The cultures have with the Hinduism, a lot of those people are vegetarian, and in Buddhism, a lot of the people just lean toward eating more vegetables anyway. So we were able to test out a lot of different foods and really enjoy them. We went with a travel company. Tour company was called Overseas Adventure Travel. I get no kickback for mentioning that, but I do want to say that because the company made a special effort to accommodate my and my friends' eating style and to make sure that we also got experiences with local cultures. We went into people's homes, we cooked meals with people, we learned about what goes on in a daily life. And it was really, really very cool. I couldn't have even planned. You couldn't expect, couldn't anticipate the type of experience that we had. So let's start with Thailand. Thailand is probably the only country, I think, that has not been invaded by some colonial power. I was pretty surprised to learn that. Apparently, one of the kings in Thailand was very good friends with somebody in Europe, in England, I believe. And when France was over there making its incursions and trying to be a colonial force in that power, which they were for about 100 years, they did not touch Thailand. So Thailand has maintained its sovereignty for its entire experience, I think, outside of other countries from that area that have come in and invaded from time to time. I think the last invasion, at least the last one we heard about, was in the 12th century when the Burmese came in and ransacked the place for maybe 10 or 12 years. But otherwise, Thailand has maintained its own identity all this time. So, food-wise, let me back up. When we started making the plans for this trip, we were very clear with the tour company that we were vegan. And I think that's really important to let people know that up front. So there's no surprises and you're not sitting there grumbling. When we contracted with this tour company, we said we're vegan. That means whole food, plant-based. That means we don't need to be eating a bunch of candies and donuts and stuff like that. What we want is fruits, vegetables, whole grains, nuts and seeds, that type of thing, right? Beans, that's really important to us. At first, the tour company was a little bit hesitant. I think it was mostly just the person that we were speaking with didn't quite know what to make of the request. But on the ground in Thailand, there was no problem at all. We had lots of stir-fry vegetables, so bok choy and celery and carrots and corn, tofu, soy products, lots of rice. That part of the world is the jasmine rice capital. That's where it is just about all produced. So lots of jasmine rice. The only challenge, I guess, was that the rice is white rice. So, that took a little bit getting used to, or, being without a whole grain rice took a little bit getting used to is what it was. But it was very well done. Seasonings were great. And we had no problem with keeping it vegan, right? No vegetable broth was added. They do use a fair amount of like fish sauce and oyster sauce, things like that, but we just didn't eat that, so they would always put on the table, everybody else in our tour group, there were a total of 10 of us, everybody else would have something with fish sauce or, oyster sauce or whatever, and ours did not. We had the rest of the seasonings, which were Thai hot peppers and onions and garlic and cilantro and rice paddy herbs. Lovely, lovely array, salts and black pepper and things like that. We did not lack for flavor at all. In fact, at the end of this, I'll give you a little spice combination that you can make in your own kitchen with no problem, no exotic, anything required, but it was so good. I used it a lot while I was over there. The same thing I say, I guess applies to the food that we had in Laos and Cambodia and Vietnam. The whole area has been heavily influenced by China. China was in Vietnam for 1,000 years, I believe, and they're still right next door, and there's still a lot of influence from China in that area. So we had a lot of stir fries, like I said, rice and noodles and rice noodles and bean thread noodles, glass noodles, all kinds of things like that. Certain spices are available and certain combinations of spices that were made. Like one was amok. I believe that was in Cambodia. And I have a couple pictures of that. It was great stuff, though. Beautiful. And as long as you maintain your veganism and you're not like dancing back and forth, vegan sometimes, not vegan other times, I think there's not a problem. One of the things I found really super interesting was in Cambodia. I did not understand, or I went over there clueless. Full disclosure, I didn't study up on it. I didn't look into the countries before I went. I went over there just, no pretenses and no preconceived ideas. I didn't realize that those countries ate a lot of bugs, a lot of insects. That's a whole subject of a conversation, but they eat silkworms. They eat wasp larvae. They eat red ant larvae, crickets, and the most interesting thing for me was they eat tarantulas. I had no clue about any of that. We went to one lady's business, which was in her home, and in the backyard was a very lush area. It's all sort of rainforesty and jungly over there. And she hunts tarantulas in her backyard. So while we were there, she hunted up a tarantula. She brought it out of its little den in the earth and brought it out for us to test. Now the good news is I'm whole food plant-based. I'm vegan. So there was no need for me to try stir-fried tarantulas. Oh, a lot of other people did. I did not. That was probably the most surprising thing. I remember a while back I saw a video of a woman eating live tarantulas, which was pretty appalling. But these were fried, and this is how that entire town, which is called like Tarantula Town, makes its living, is by hunting tarantulas and selling tarantula snacks. Amazing. One thing that I came to understand, though, is that when people are confronted with not having enough food to eat, and those areas being that they were colonialized, or there were, wars between countries, there were civil wars in some cases, people do what they need to do to survive. And the tour guides who were with us, they were natives of each country. Every one of them said, we eat anything that moves. Some said, if its back is to the sun and it's moving, we eat it. They said it includes cockroaches, dog, cat, rat, forest rats, stuff that we are not confronted with here. And what I came away from that with was how very privileged we are, that we have never been beset by another country, or we're not threatened in that way. Even here, if you are really, really hungry, you can go to a soup kitchen and get pasta and sauce. You can get something, right? We've never been to a point here where we had to eat bugs or boil worms or figure out how to cook crickets. I am privileged in that I can say, I don't eat that. I can say that and still have plenty to fill my belly and feed my family. In those countries over there, it was a matter of survival for them in many, many cases, and how to feed their family and how to feed their children. So now children are introduced to insects very early. It's what you feed your 1-year-old instead of here, it's baby food from a jar or from a pouch or something. Their part of it is bugs. It didn't work. It wouldn't have worked for us to say, oh, we're vegan, but I eat chocolate ice cream, right? That would have come across as disingenuous and hypocritical. So I didn't do that. I'm sure there are people who might have tried that, but I didn't see the value in that. So for desserts, let's say, it was often fresh fruit, seasonal fruit. So it was dragon fruit, watermelon, cantaloupe, guava, grapes a couple of times. Another thing about staying vegan while you're traveling is being creative. So we went to a couple of restaurants and the menus were fine. Now we were not able to, nor did we even try, to stay oil-free. We stayed plant-based. There was no whole, or very little whole grain rice or, anything like that. But we were able to stay plant-based, and we had to be consistent about it.